First of all, I'm going to present my research study and a metacognitive analysis of a specific learning objective. This presentation is titled Intergroup Communication Strategies to Help Students to Communicate in an EFL Classroom. This corresponds to my object of study as well. First of all, it is important to mention that at the beginning of the term, for my internship experience, I was assigned to a school in Puente Alto called Miguel Chavaca. It corresponded to a subsidized school of boys, in which I was assigned a 6th grade in order to do my intervention and participate inside the classroom. This class corresponded of 38 students, in which 45% of the students were belonged to the Colectiva de la Infancia organization. During the first weeks of my internship experience, I was able to perform some observation records, and I realized that the teacher of English uses different strategies to engage students to communicate, which made most of the students participate orally during the class. Even if they didn't understand or speak English, they still participated in their mother tongue, which led me to my research question, which is how do intergroup communication strategies used by the teacher help to develop students' willingness to communicate orally. In order to carry on the study, I had to find through the literature justification for my question. First, the feasibility, which I realized it was feasible because I had direct contact with the students during the internship experience, and I was able to do intervention if necessary. Then I saw the relevance of the study because in the Metacognitive educational proposal said that the students are able to be part and be involved on their learning process if the teachers allow them to, providing them the tools and resources necessary. And this made me realize that teachers need to be aware of the strategies employed during a classroom in order to make this happen. Also, I realized my study was novel because going through the literature again, I found different studies in the area, but with different focuses. Most of them focused on the learner's role while these strategies were being employed instead of the teacher's role while teaching these strategies. As it was mentioned in one of the studies I chose as a point of view by Weinstein, Clare, Meyer, and Richards in 1983. In order to carry on the study forward, I selected different types of materials to gather all necessary information. First, I chose an interview addressed to the teacher because in Math and Gas it was mentioned that interviews are interactive enough and relevant for eliciting any type of information necessary to answer the research question. It provided the participant to expand their answers to give all necessary information. And I decided to do a structured questionnaire for the students measured by a Likert scale. We gave a quantitative perspective to my research study because providing numerical data helped me avoid the halo effect on the students. Because if they expand too much, they might answer questions that I wanted to hear instead of the question instead of looking their own perception of the question I was doing. Then, in order to carry on this, to apply these materials, I needed to ensure trustworthiness. And for doing this, I asked different experts in the area, mainly professors of this university, to validate and evaluate my materials. When this was performed, let me go back a little bit. Once I gathered this evaluated material, I decided to do a final revision of it, improving them with the different feedbacks I got from my teachers, and to make a final edition of the materials to gather and elicit any information necessary for answering my research question. Also, once I started the data application material, originally I was going to perform a direct interview with the teacher, but unfortunately this wasn't possible because of time schedules in the teacher's behalf and different meetings with the school superiors, which didn't allow me to have enough time to perform this direct interview. So it was agreed that the interview was going to be done by email. And in the case of the students' questionnaire, I originally thought of applying it during the English class period, but as the class was divided in different steps, in different stages, like my intervention in my teacher-student colleague interventions, it wasn't possible because of time. So I was allowed to take out 10 different students from another class and take them to an empty classroom to apply this material. To select these 10 students, I decided to apply the material to. I looked for different criteria regarding the grades and their participation during the English class. After this material and evidence was gathered, I started the analysis procedure. First, I analyzed the teacher's interview. In order to understand how to analyze this interview qualitatively, I looked through the literature and I found a model by Tomás in 2003 about inductive content analysis. In order to get a more understandable demonstration of the data, I modified the method, putting different colors to the patterns that I found during the interview answers, and then I categorized them in different aspects to make them more abstract and to gather the information I actually needed to answer the research question, which was positive and negative aspects of each main thing that I found. Then I started analyzing the status questionnaire, which was a quantitative analysis, because as I said before, numerical data allowed me to find the density of agreement of the students' answer regarding their feelings and the teacher strategies and activities. This provided me with different percentages, gave me it was easier to understand the perception of the students regarding the teacher's activities. After all this data was already analyzed and I got the results, I found some general conclusions, like, for example, the teacher planned her lessons in advance in order to ensure the activities were appropriate for the student's level of English and emotional state. For instance, she used a lot of group work and interactive work among students and student teachers in order to ensure collaborative work and respect. So the students were not afraid of speaking in the class because they felt safe and they felt comfortable. Of course, as every study, it has its own limitations. I realized I couldn't generalize the results because the teacher's method and the teacher's methodology depended on the student's context. Each context is different. So, for example, in this case, I was in a subsidized school in Puente Alto, which gave me results that probably are not going to be the same that if I perform this study in Las Condes with a private school. And finally, in the second part of this presentation, I'm going to introduce the metacognitive analysis, in which I was assigned with a learning objective for a 5th grade regarding written expression. The objective of this that I was assigned is students will be able to write and complete non-literary and literary text in order to share information about different topics of the study. Putting myself in this teaching situation made me realize that I possess some strength to perform this type of classes, but also some weaknesses and challenges. One of the strengths I found relevant was that taking a look to all my internship experience, I tend to identify the problems that the students need first to provide them with the resources necessary for them to understand better. As it is mentioned in Westwood in 2008, visual materials, for example, are relevant for students because it engages them into the class and help them to understand easier. But at the same time, I realized I had some weaknesses because I used a lot of strategies and methods and resources to make them understand because I have problems giving simpler instructions. I tend to provide long, complex, and difficult words for the students of that age, for example, because I'm accustomed to perform classes in higher levels. So I realized, as in Erickson theory, in Universidad article said, students from 5th grade tend to understand systematic instructions, which for me is really difficult because I don't know how to simplify my words when I'm explaining something, simplify my sentences. Which also led me to the challenge that I need to perform in this type of classes, because when teaching writing, it's really important to students to modify. I have to modify the vocabulary I use because, as it is mentioned in the Minedu educational proposal, students then assimilate the language as the teacher uses it. So if I use a complex word that they don't understand, they probably are going to use it wrong in the future. So for me, it was one of the biggest challenges. I need to modify the language that I'm going to use when teaching in order to provide clear instruction to the students, and that's going to be meaningful, that is going to provide meaningful learning for them in the future. And finally, these are the references I used for performing this presentation, and thank you very much.
You can have a seat. We're going to start the questions.